doctor smiling at me.
Is the Yamaha.
Advertising, a $50 billion a year industry in which the stakes are high, the action fast. Chiat Day, like every other advertising agency, gets paid to communicate, to say to consumers clearly and dramatically why they should buy.
At Pioneer, we make 210 different products that only do one thing: make music.
The job of advertising is to present to the consumer alternatives that they can choose to add to their lives or not.
You can't make anybody buy anything. You really can't. And what we're really trying to do is present people with choices that if they have discretionary dollars, they have an opportunity to purchase and reflect that in their own lifestyles.
The average American woman today does not measure her value by whether or not there's a ring around the collar. She's moved on to other values.
The kinds of discussions we have around here are, what do people want? And if we will tell a client if he's got something that people do not want, it's probably not worth advertising. we can't create demand. Yes, we can deflect demand, but we can't create it.
Hey, Beignet.
Chiat Day is just coming off its extraordinarily successful campaign for Nike shoes.
See how these are going to work? These are going to be great. You're going to be two billboards posted, one the guy throwing and one the guy catching, and this will be the street, be one on either side of the street. It's going to be great.
With Nike, there were a number of different things that advertising had to do. The first thing it had to do was make a big splash in LA.
Perfect day. I love LA. We love it. We love it. I love LA. We love it.
What we wanted to do with Nike was we wanted to make it to get back to the authenticity of Nike. And those TV commercials are all about how Nike is really at one with the person who wants to be athletic or to be fit, that kind of thing, and to really sort of get into the same sort of mindset of those people. We wanted people to feel, hey, those Nike guys are really neat, they really understand what I feel about sport and fitness or whatever. It not only sold shoes, but it also sold some of their clothing as well, which Nike wanted to put more emphasis on.
They really didn't want advertising that felt like advertising because they weren't sure they liked advertising. So it was trying to be as honest and real and unadvertising as it could be.
At the age of 14, I discovered the secret. Pick the one thing you do best and work at it. So while every other kid was trying to be the next Iceman, I would hit the boys. Because I figure that you ain't got the ball, you can't shoot the ball.
You're never satisfied with what you just did. And so I think that every time we get a new opportunity, it's kind of like we're again on our quest for that elusive, perfect ad. And we always seem to, we do good things, but we fall just a little bit short, and the next time out, we're going to try and do a little bit better.
Porsche Cars of North America has come to Chiat Day with a $10 million problem. how to communicate more accurately and precisely the reasons for buying a very expensive automobile. They will have to convince the client that they understand Porsche's marketing problems.
When I first heard that the Porsche account would be available, at that moment I decided we really wanted this piece of business because it seemed to fit everything we believe in advertising. And this is the kind of advertising we love to do. We love to represent a product that we can believe in and a company that believes in itself, and that's Porsche.
Every product presents unique advertising problems, and an expensive high-performance automobile like Porsche is no exception.
Nobody needs a Porsche. There's got to be reasons beyond it'll get you to work or out to dinner that people would buy a car that costs that much. So what we'd like to find out is, how does someone justify spending that much money to himself or to people he respects?
And it's very clear that historically Porsche has had very few true sports car competitors. There certainly has been Mercedes.
This initial presentation is the result of Chiat Day's research into Porsche's competition and consumer attitudes toward the car itself.
And the Corvette has been the American version of the sports car. We never really offered the performance aspects of Porsche.
But now this is really the sort of the crux of the whole thing, is that Porsche's become notorious, if you like, because it's always they're always associated with something that's kind of not exactly necessarily bad, but slightly infamous. Like they get stolen, or
the razor's edge of notoriety.
Exactly. Yeah. And of course, where it starts getting bad is when you start having Porsches used as prizes and things like that. And then, of course, there's this whole glamour thing. Advertisers use Porsches as a symbol.
Yeah, or a standard.
Or as a standard, yes.
This is the Porsche 930 Turbo, one of the world's fastest accelerating automobiles. And this is Yamaha's new Sega Turbo.
Ironically, in one of its Yamaha television spots, Chiat Day used the speed and beauty of a Porsche to upgrade the image of a Yamaha motorcycle.
Exactly how quick is the Yamaha Turbo? Ask the guy in the Porsche.
Porsche isn't in control of its image. What I mean by that is that the image that people have about Porsches has really got nothing to do with what the factory has said about Porsches or what Porsche the company has ever wanted to say or anything. It's really come from the experience people have of Porsches in the community. It's a car which has a life of its own, if you like, sort of divorced from whatever sort of advertising and the company or whatever can do about it. And so I think that was probably the most important finding sort of we learned.
We're not like other people. We do not approach the business the way other companies do. Our products are different. That's a message that we really don't feel has been adequately explained to date. First, we looked at advertising agencies. We looked for for companies with conflicting accounts, where there are other major automotive accounts. Then we had a criteria which said we don't want an agency where we are going to be a very small client. We want an agency for whom we are going to be important. We feel very strongly that Porsche is about as different from any other car as you can imagine, both in terms of the product and in terms of the philosophy behind it. And we want an agency that would help us, reflect that. And we like their creativity. They've done some very, sometimes risky advertising, and it's worked.
We are Delmer and Martha Clow. In 1979, we were taken by the Artesians and spent 16 months living with them. They are an interesting people with rather large feet.
Small.
When we left, we promised to always drink Olympia beer because the Artesian brewing water makes it taste so good.
Also, they still have our 2 children, Harold and Annette.
No matter how clever the ad, it must stimulate the consumer to go out and buy. What Chiat Day did for Olympia beer, they must now do for Porsche.
See a typical dealer and see the kind of things you do here and learn more about the dealer.
To communicate effectively for a company, we feel it's vital that we become as immersed in that company as we can and know as much about it as we possibly can so we can take on the voice of that company.
Amazing, to know whenever you want to go, you just step on it. Yeah, you go. Whoa. What gear are you in now? Still second?
Yeah. Driving it, seeing it being made, talking to the people that make it is vital in every account. Yeah, this is really amazing car. How do you explain, particularly in a print ad, how it feels to drive a car that when you step on the gas, it just goes? I mean,
We're doing advertising to sell several types of automobiles. But what we're trying to do is find a way to bring the spirit and the values of that company through the communication so that it's not simply an ad for a car, but it's an ad about a way of doing things that makes Porsche unique.
Never has Porsche's advertising lived up to the reality of Porsche the car, you know, the experience of owning Porsche. So we've got a very big job ahead of us. People here sometimes look at Porsche as a flashy automobile. The German attitude is quite different. You know, they look at it as, you know, practicality in a very strange way.
What ensues now for members of the creative team at Chiat Day is the long, intense process of trial and error that will result in a full-fledged ad campaign.
As opposed to this thing just being a jewel, I like the idea of it being dirty and muddy, but in terms of powerful graphics, I've always felt like if that Dakar car was sitting there in a gray studio with mud all over it and dirt and dings. Do we have a way of doing emboss? You know, comping emboss? You know the Porsche, you know, the little,
Yeah, I like that. The other problem with that, Clow, is this whole maroon thing.
well, I don't want to deal with that maroon thing. Maroon thing doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't relate to anything else that's Porsche. It doesn't relate to the race.
Just,
they're going to be hung up on that.
I'd rather do subtle variations on what we like than extreme variations and confuse them. I think this obsessed with perfection idea that we came back from Germany with, if we can capture that in the advertising, it's right. But then what are the ways of going about that? Is it their racing heritage? Is it the story of Dr. Porsche? Is it how they make the car by hand, or is it a combination of all those things that best get that point across?
Here you're dealing with the net out of all of this is the fun of driving.
All Porsches should be fun to drive, and 944 happens to be
the funnest to drive.
That works great.
Yeah, and then the future.
We don't have a lot of money budget-wise, so we're going to have to select very carefully what we do and make sure that we're just not wasting money and utilizing every dollar we have in the right area. You know, radio only has an audio message. Print only has, it's only on paper, it doesn't come to life, and TV actually comes to life. So ideally we'd love to do a lot of TV, but also unfortunately it's the most expensive medium.
The most critical media decision we have to make has to do with if, how, and when we'll use television because of the costs involved.
We just can't buy 2 weeks of TV, just all types of shows. We're just going to be real specific on what shows we pick because we're trying to talk to a real selective audience.
An advertiser has as many voices as there are media, and choosing the right combination of print, television, and radio is essential.
You can do something a little different in newspaper that you can do in a magazine, and you can do something different on an outdoor board that you can in television, but you're still trying to say what the advertiser has to say and have the continuity of the advertiser's point of view in each medium. But you might say that a more retail, timely message would be more appropriate in newspaper, for example, because it's a more timely medium, and a magazine is a monthly, more passive medium, so you might give people more information to savor. And as we talked about before, television is a more emotional medium where you can deal with action and excitement. Yamaha is a good example of, in many communication efforts, you have an emotional component and a logical component. In selling motorcycles, there's a lot of real emotional reasons people buy motorcycles, and you can capture those on television a lot better. Just how it feels to ride a motorcycle, that can be captured in TV. When you get into print as a component of the same advertiser's message, very often we'll use that to do more of the logical side of the advertiser's message. You have the time to explain how the technology works. So emotional advertising, I think, is the more powerful tool, but sometimes it's not the only tool that you need to get the job done. You have to maybe use a combination of both.
My first jump was a joke, 9 feet even. But I said to myself, don't give up. In high school, I kept coming in second. I could have called it quits. But I believe you should never give up. When that's your philosophy, there's no telling how far you can go.
Carl Lewis TV and the Carl Lewis billboard, I think, were a wonderful pairing of here's this emotional message on film, and then here's the same emotional message as you're driving down the street. Its simplicity said so much to people that it actually, I think the outdoor operated just as much on an emotional plane as the television did.
You guys were going off with purity of intent, and my thing has always been we have to make rational arguments for making an emotional decision to buy a Porsche. And
that is a rational argument.
At this point, the art directors and copywriters are still just brainstorming about the kind of image they want to create for Porsche.
Talk about the ad with the car off the ground, the one that you like.
Oh, Porsche believes that sports sedan like jumbo shrimp and military intelligence is a contradiction in terms.
I saw Cameron doing this in front of the Biltmore earlier.
Well, the thing I don't
our
like about
definition,
that,
it's just not what Porsche
the thing I don't like
do.
about that is I don't think maybe we have to even acknowledge other cars.
Yeah. You certainly don't want to do or buy a Porsche and show the space shuttle going off, because it's going right against, this is a big thrill.
Yeah, that's totally wrong. But what about this thing that we started with, which is this idea that Dr. Porsche is still not happy, we're obsessed with making this car. The off-road racing is a real neat opportunity, I think, to kind of grab people's attention in terms of Porsche. That's a very uncharacteristic way of looking at Porsches, and it may help us reposition it as being a piece of driving machinery. And that we are
Chiat Day has to deal with the history and image of the Porsche. For Apple Computer's entirely new product, just coming onto the marketplace, they had to create a piece of introductory advertising.
1984, as I think anyone who observes advertising will admit, is a very brave piece of communication. It's brave because it was very strong and impactful. It was brave because we were introducing a new product and didn't even show the product or its benefits or give anyone any information. For many yardsticks, traditional yardsticks of communication, you would say, well, that doesn't make sense. Why are you doing this? Is it worth $2 million or whatever the effort cost?
Our object was always to say that, okay, your image of computers is something that's controlling, that's scary, that's science fiction, HAL in 2001 and all of that stuff.
It broke all the rules and it said, Apple is this company that doesn't do business as usual. We're breaking the rules. We're introducing new technologies for the future. We're changing the world. We're not just fitting into the world.
We had an ad lying around that had been done almost a year before with the headline, Why 1984 Won't Be Like, quote, 1984. And Brent Thomas picked that up and said, there's got to be a television commercial idea in there.
And they looked at this thing and they said, all of the characteristic things. Where's the product? What do you mean this is the way you're going to introduce Macintosh?
And originally we were talking about making it almost funny, kind of 50s sci-fi movie-ish, with, the weird vehicles that don't quite work and robots that aren't really robots. And we came to the conclusion it would be much more impactful if we took it seriously.
We had to decide by Friday at noon before the Super Bowl, which was on a Sunday. And nobody was offering what we paid for it, and we're saying, you're throwing $300,000 away. You paid $1 million and you're getting $700,000 offer. Why throw $300,000? Let's run it. Come on, Steve. And finally it was this tug of war. All right, let's run it.
Today we celebrate the first glorious anniversary of the Information Purification Directives. We have created, for the first time in all history, a garden of pure ideology, where each worker may bloom, secure from the pests of a contradictory thoughts. Our unification of thoughts is more powerful a weapon than any fleet or army on earth. We are one people, with one will, one resolve, one cause. Our enemies shall talk themselves to death, and we will bury them with their own confusion. We shall prevail.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh. And you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
The best response was the guy on the news that said, well, the game wasn't much, but did you see the commercial? I mean, that made my Sunday.
This second television spot seeks to remind consumers that the Macintosh is different and simple to use.
If you know how to point, you already know how to use it.
Most people still don't know exactly what they need one of these things for, and what they're going to do with it, and what it means to them in business, and what it means to them as a home appliance. So it's all uncharted territory, and kind of exciting for us because we have to try and figure out how people will use them, or how we think they'll use them. We've got to find out how they're really using them.
Retentive print ads serve as further reminders of the product and spell out in more detail what television can only convey dramatically. Chiat Day positioned Macintosh in stark opposition to IBM, a classic instance of competitive advertising.
All you have to do is learn this. This is Macintosh from Apple, also a highly sophisticated business computer, and to use it, all you have to do is learn this. Now, you decide which one is more sophisticated.
If an idea doesn't scare you a little bit, it's probably not an idea at all. Because in fact, we're trying to find a new way to tell people something so it will stand out of all that clutter.
Hopefully, solving problems for Porsche allows us then to bring new things to Apple, and solving problems for Apple lets us bring things to Porsche. I mean, that's the ideal situation. That's what we're aiming for here.
At this point, Porsche expects Chiat Day to have arrived at an image or set of images that will express the creative focus of the campaign. If it is not satisfied, Porsche can withdraw the account at any time.
You've got something here that everybody in this industry would kill for, and that is this wonderful car, whether it be your racing car or your cabriolet or any of your cars are just such wonderful symbols that graphically, I really believe that the purest, most simple presentation of that product is the strongest graphic thing we can do. You don't need, whizzy, stroby photography and double exposures and all of that crap. You've got this pure, wonderful thing. And I think the presentation should be extremely simple and extremely focused on the car. We have a couple of concepts for television. One of them deals, I think, with the emotional reason that people buy Porsches beyond some of the logical reasons that we want them to understand. So why don't we run one of those?
The idea of a campaign based on what it feels like to drive a Porsche fails to impress the client.
It'd be very exciting. We rocked around and thrown about the place a little bit like the Kenny Roberts Yamaha thing.
Well, except that we felt that 9/11 is a bigger surprise than anyone else could lay on you.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yes, it is a surprise, but until that moment, you could have anyone's badge here, really, from there on.
Right. The Yachty question.
Yeah. This commercial, I think we're in perhaps a Zeppelin hangar.
The agency staff must be ready with an alternative plan should the need arise. And it does.
You fairly enigmatically look at the cars as a person moves and stops and studies, but you never meet this person. You see his feet, you see his hands behind his back. And this person is at the other end of the car just staring, and you rack focus. So you're on focus in the car, and then you rack focus, and just at the very end, you see Dr. Porsche, and he's just staring at the car, and you know the wheels are turning. He's thinking, how can I make this thing better?
I think it's very close to the mark. You know, it's, you're capturing a lot of the essentials about the company. I think it's an extremely powerful ad.
Yeah, I do too.
And I really like it. I think we have a finding each other. I like it. I think it's excellent.
I think that at a point in time when a creative person thinks he's done the best stuff that he can possibly do and wants to sit back and be self-satisfied is when he should leave the business, because he probably has lost what makes you any good at this thing in the first place.
One of the things that keeps it fascinating is you don't know anything when you walk in the door in the morning. I mean, you might as well be, just starting out. You know, you were just born that morning, and you may have all these little, things made out of lead and bronze, these little awards around that you've gotten, but that doesn't mean anything. That doesn't mean you're going to do it again.
Rolling down Imperial Highway, the big nasty plate out of my side. Santa Ana winds blowing hot from the north. We were born to ride. From the side bay to the valley, from the west side to the east side. Everybody very happy, 'cause the sun is shining all the time. It's like another perfect day. I love it.